Spider-Man, Spider-Man, where have you gone to, Spider-Man? Where have you gone to, Spider-Man?
You want to know who the best fictional character is? It's not James Bond or Sherlock Holmes or even Batman or the One. It's Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man. I always have. I have reprints of some of the Ditko stuff. I have Miles' first issue. I have the goddamn Spider-Man vault. I have seen every movie multiple times. My favorite movie is basically a parody of the wall crawler. But why? Such a weird idea, Spider-Man. How could such an odd concept, a man with the powers of a bug? Well, it's just that. He's a man. You are Spider-Man. I am Spider-Man. You may not be able to stick to walls, but you may have had relationship problems or been broke or missed something important. Most people only know about him from the movies, so which is the best? I'm going to rank each one as a movie and as a Spider-Man movie. This movie is really hard for me to place. It's a very important movie. It has a lot of cheese. This was the first film to gross $100 million in its opening weekend, and Sam Raimi was a really odd choice for a director, even though it all worked out. All the origin stuff is actually really good. Like, I like how Peter just goes into wrestling to buy a car just to impress MJ. And he's immediately filled with guilt when he finds out who Ben's killer is. The action is fantastic, even if it doesn't look real. The Green Goblin is such a bizarre villain in this movie, too. After he gets revenge on the corporate people who fired him, he just kind of does things. And he has no real reason for going after Spider-Man. Tobey is pretty weird and awkward in this movie as well, and he doesn't really get out of it, even if I do think he is better than the other two. James Franco is also pretty awkward in this, and he doesn't really feel like Peter's best friend. You never see Peter and Harry actually being friends, they just kind of are told that they are. Also, it's really bizarre that Peter hasn't met Norman until the beginning of the movie. Basically, the first half is really genuinely great, but the second half is just a guilty pleasure movie with some sprinkled in greatness every once in a while. This movie gets a 7. This movie gets a 7. Oh wow, we're already at a masterpiece. Yeah, this movie's pretty good. Dr. Octopus is so much better than the Green Goblin, even though we don't have Willem Dafoe hamming it up. The effects are incredible for 2004. And it's really fascinating seeing Peter just constantly destroyed throughout the movie. And it's very Spider-Man. Also, something I always found really interesting as a kid was Peter losing his powers. Seeing Peter's life without Spider-Man is a really cool idea and a great new arc. It's the complete opposite of what the first movie was, which didn't even make Spider-Man being a hindrance on his life. It's just kind of something he has to do. The biggest problem with this movie is Mary Jane. I didn't really mention her in the last movie because she doesn't really do much. She's just kind of there. She's so manipulative in this movie, and just a huge waste of air. And it doesn't even really make sense why Peter likes her. This is not nearly as bad of a problem as in the next movie, but that comes later. Overall, this movie's pretty fantastic, and it gets a 9. Yeah, so this movie is pretty bad. It doesn't suck, but it is bad. Okay, let's start with the bad. The dance in the middle isn't as bad as some people say. It's a good representation of how nerdy Peter Parker thinks that cool people act. Not that I would know. Dancing in the club is pretty bad though. Just watch High Top's video on it. He explains it a lot better than I ever could. And of course, this movie is a huge mess. It's often said that producers like Avi Arad are why Venom is in this movie, but the whole point of this movie is revenge and forgiveness and all that, like how Spider-Man 2 is about responsibility and consequences. So Sam Raimi either created an entirely new version of the film but just still couldn't make Venom himself fit, or he had Spider-Man have revenge against Sandman since the beginning. In that case, I'm very glad the symbiote was actually added, as it would be super out of character for Peter to be vengeful like that. What I'm saying is that this movie would have been a huge mess with or without Venom. It was doomed to be the worst in the trilogy when Sam decided on Sandman. Something good about having 3 villains is that Sandman is shoved to the side. He would have not been a good main villain at all. He has a core, and you see what he's going through because of his daughter, but Penny's existence doesn't make him be a villain. He isn't just crazy like the Green Goblin, and he doesn't have to finish something that he thinks is good like Doc Ock. He's just a crook with powers, and Spider-Man usually deals with crooks in a couple of seconds. Not because they aren't as powerful as him, because they're just not as interesting. Sandman is way better as a side villain, and the twist. The twist that Sandman was the real killer of Uncle Ben, it sucks. I hate it. It is my least favorite part of the movie. It's just a way for Peter to feel vengeful, and so Sandman has a personal connection to Peter. Let's look at all the villain personal connections in the trilogy. We have Norman and Otto, who are both mentors and father figures to Peter. Harry is Peter's old best friend and Norman's son, and Eddie is Peter, but he never learned great power, great responsibility, and is actually a pretty interesting opposite to Peter. But Flint? But he was really the one to kill Uncle Ben. Ugh. No more talk about the villains. Okay, the MJ drama gets really old in this movie, and I am 90% sure that was Sam's idea, which is why I think this was doomed to be the worst in the series. All that relationship drama should have ended at 2, since it would have had a nice conclusion, and MJ would just kind of be there and she'd be fine. And Peter and MJ end up the same at the end of this movie as the last one, so there's no real point to it. It's just more annoying fights for no reason. Okay, time for the good. I actually quite like Eddie. As I said earlier, the effects are incredible for 2007. Like, Spider-Man looks better than this than he does in Homecoming. One good thing about Venom is his face. It looks so much more terrifying than it does in his own movie, which I haven't seen, even though it came out 11 years earlier. The action is fantastic. The camera work is best in this than in any Spider-Man movie. I mean, maybe Spider-Man 2 or Spider-Verse wins, but Spider-Verse is animated, so it has an advantage. Alright, I'm done with Spider-Man 3. It isn't, but actually this is secretly the best one. No, man. This movie has too many problems to be truly good. It has some goods, but it's only a 4. 4 out of 10. I changed my mind. And there's some news about Spider-Man 3, and that is the gospel of release the Raimi cut. So, it's basically Spider-Man 2.1, but with even more and for Spider-Man 3. So, if you have Twitter, then start spreading around the hashtag of release the Raimi cut, hashtag release the Raimi cut. And if you don't have Twitter, get it. So yeah, also, James Gunn is back, and that's awesome. So after Spider-Man 3 was so bad, and Sam didn't want to make another bad movie, it was rebooted, and now Mark Webb made another bad movie. I'm just kidding. This movie's fine. There isn't much to say. It's just the first movie with better effects, no heart, a couple of great actors, a lame villain, and a really underrated theme, and a plot that should really be more focused on to differentiate it from the first film more. Yeah, okay, I'll go into more detail. A lot of people really don't like the whole parent stuff, but at least it's different. And after people didn't like the trailers, Sony just cut out so much of it, so now it's just a clone. Andrew Garfield's pretty great as usual, and his romance with Gwen is so much better than all that MJ stuff, even though MJ is typically a better character. Also, the suit is okay. Yeah, it looks like a basketball, but it is something that differentiates it from the other movies, and it's a plus that it isn't just like the ultimate suit with different proportions or, something like that. As for the origin stuff, watch Hightop's video on this movie. He makes good videos, okay? This gets a 6, waste potential. The sequel, on the other hand... This movie sucks so much. I hate it. Who? Why? No. Okay. Grab some popcorn. I got a lot to say. Okay, let's start with the good. The effects are good. The suit looks real. This movie actually looks like the crew just found a way to shoot Spidey swinging through New York. As for other good, this movie is full of great actors. Everyone in this movie is really good. Except for in this.
You're a fraud, Spider-Man!
Okay, now on to everything else. First off, the suit I just mentioned twice. Everyone and their mom loves this suit for some reason. It's just, the eyes are too big and the colors are weird and it just looks off, okay? Maybe I just like Dakota's eyes more. I don't know, whatever. Now let's get on to the real meat. Peter Parker. I don't even know who this dude is. Seriously, what does he do? He's 18, maybe? He's apparently in college, even though we never see this. He does web design, and we kinda see this. And he's dating Gwen, sort of. Oh, no! The same, oh, we're together, oh, we're not. Stuff from the Raimi movies is back. You know what? I won't even note on that. I guess I just don't like relationship drama. At least Spidey's personality is good as Spider-Man. I mean, you know. I really like how Peter first tries to talk to Electro before blowing him up later in the movie. Well, he does just let a bunch of people die in the beginning for some reason.
Told you I am running a bit late. I saw the spiders. Really?
Electro. He's just Riddler from Batman Forever and Mr. Freeze from Batman and Robin put together. Why would you make that? Now, I like Batman Forever more than most people, but just no. How did they even manage that? Take a great actor like Jamie Foxx and ruin him with this crazy character. Electro's a really basic idea, and it's not that hard to mess up. And all the villains are equally bad in this movie, so pushing aside one doesn't really elevate the movie. Harry. So you know how I said Harry in the Raimi movies just doesn't feel like Peter's friend? Well, at least that Harry was there the whole time. Harry just shows up in this and just says, hey, remember when we were friends? When were they friends? Before Peter's parents left? Anyway, the whole blood thing is really dumb. First of all, Norman tells Harry that the same symptoms that Harry has are the ones that Norman had at his age. So why is Harry so worried? And why is he right? And why does Spider-Man even decline the whole blood thing? I know it seems kind of like an unheroic thing to do, but why? If Peter had taken the money, he could have paid his college stuff with it. And May wouldn't have to. And Harry could have a possible cure. Oh, wait, never mind. The movie does explain this, and it completely ruins the everyman part of Spider-Man. So, there's this whole complicated thing about how Richard, as in Richard Parker, used his own DNA for the spider things in the first movie, making it so Peter's the only person that could be Spider-Man. And that sucks. So I guess that does give a reason why Peter just can't give his blood to Harry, because Harry doesn't have like Parker blood or whatever. I don't know, whatever. At least we get this magnificent line.
You're a fraud, Spider-Man!
Well, the story. You know what? I don't even know what the plot of this movie is. Stuff just kind of happens. And Electro's reason for hating Spider-Man sucks. He thinks that Spider-Man just set him up, which he so clearly didn't. And Green Goblin hates Spider-Man because, I don't even know. And Gwen's death was such a waste. She was the best part of these two movies, even if I didn't like their dumb fights. If you're gonna watch this one, just leave it as you do laundry or something. It's a 2 out of 10. So this is a pretty controversial movie. A lot of people love it, and a lot of people hate it. And what do I think? Well, Well, let's start with the bat. As I said earlier, the effects are oddly terrible. Part of this is just because Marvel probably doesn't give their VFX artists enough time. Another is that Peter's suit is too tight. Like, you can't see any of the wrinkles or stretches when it's CGI as opposed to when it's really there. And you can see all that stuff. And big reason why CGI sucks is why the hell is this shot CG syndrome? Like this, for example. Why not just have Tom in a practical suit in front of a green screen instead of having the whole shot in CGI? Another complaint, Sony seems so excited about having access to the MCU that it's everywhere. Iron Man has to be there because of how Spidey was established in Civil War, but it gets pretty annoying with all the MCU references. Vulture being mad at Iron Man is fine, but the kid's constantly mentioning the Avengers and especially Ned, and okay. I hear this all the time, but no, this movie is not a John Hughes movie. I don't get it when people say this. This is fine, by the way. It doesn't need... Willow! You're always ruining this for me. Now, I am going to address some common complaints that make no goddamn sense. Number 1. Peter has no Spidey sense. Okay, this is the most easy to disprove, as it is just straight up wrong. Spidey sense in this movie just tells him that there is danger, but not what it is or where. Infinity War really bends it and makes it more like a psychic ability, as it just kind of tells him, something might be bad somewhere. But that's out of my jurisdiction, so blame those sneaky Russos. Okay, here's a really big example that these folk use. Vulture is grabbing Peter out of the air. So, Spider-Man is already falling here, so his Spidey sense is going to go, danger, danger! Since he's about to fall on his ass, right? So, Peter just thinks, yeah, I know. And then, Vulture comes down, and his Spidey sense goes, danger, danger! And he goes, yeah, I know. So, he thinks the warning from the Vulture is still the one from falling. Vulture was already pretty far before Peter jumped, so while he's in the air, if his Spidey sense told him, there's a big thing coming up from behind you. Spidey's already in the air, so it can't go anywhere. Another example is this. Why didn't Peter just get out of the way? Well, I don't know. You probably should have done that, but instead he blocked. And you can see it right there. You know? Spidey sense just tells him that there is danger. It doesn't make him react. Spidey sense isn't just like more instincts. It just tells him that there's danger. Alright? Debunked. Next complaint. Peter faces no consequences. Yeah, that one's true, except for the time that Peter got in detention and he got in trouble with May. He lost his suit, that was his fault. He was the reason that Liz left, and his grades dropped. He got in trouble with May, and, you know, besides that, yeah, you're right. Now, it is time for the big one. So the main idea of this complaint is that Uncle Ben doesn't exist and becoming an Avenger is Peter's main motivator. And this is just straight up wrong. Okay, so how is Spider-Man introduced in Civil War? Well, Peter says this line.
When you can do the things that I can, but you don't. And then the bad things happen. They happen because of you.
Which pretty much just means with great power comes great responsibility. You know, the thing that Ben taught him? Well, that's Civil War. What about the actual Spider-Man movie that we're talking about? After all, Infinity War isn't part of my jurisdiction. So why is Civil War? Well, it's not. So, what happens in Homecoming? So, here is the most common complaint that I hear that is used for this argument. So this is the most common instance that is used in this argument. And that is, Peter stops the Vulture to impress Tony and become part of the Avengers. No, this is incorrect. Flat out. I don't care if you don't like this movie, but this is wrong. As far as Peter knows, he's never talking to Tony Stark again. And he doesn't even know it's moving day. Peter only remembers that it's moving day when he's already driving there. He was going to stop the Vulture anyway. Peter left his phone in Vulture's car so he can track him down later. He didn't even know if he was going to do anything. As far as he knew, he was actually just going out of town to do something. Doesn't matter. The reason why the plane was the thing that was being stolen was just because it was another connection between Peter and Vulture. If Peter wasn't going to stop Vulture, he'd be making the same mistake as letting Ben's killer go away. Yeah, sure, Vulture probably won't kill anybody. Yeah, sure, that guy probably won't kill anybody. Yeah, sure, the cops will probably get Vulture. Yeah, sure, that mugger is probably going to get caught. See? It's the same thing. If he wasn't going to do that, you're making the same mistake all over again. It doesn't matter if it's Tony's plane or an old man's car. With great power comes great responsibility. And this Peter knows that. Now, the big argument that I hear a lot with this movie is that Marvel doesn't get Spider-Man, or something along that. Now, I just explained to you why Marvel gets the core of the character, but I'm going to get back to the rest of that in a minute. First, I'm going to talk about dude, this movie came out of nowhere, and it's just oh my, it turned Miles into an amazing character. Peter B. Parker is an amazing new take on Peter. The Prowler is one of my new favorite villains. The animation is amazing. The jokes are hilarious. This movie truly surprised me. There's a movie coming out next summer with my two favorite actors, Jake Gyllenhaal and Samuel L. Jackson, and it's a Spider-Man movie. I don't really care because I've been thinking about this movie. The biggest name in it is Nicolas Cage. I'm not even thinking about him. I'm thinking about Shameik Moore. I never even heard of him. What the hell? Just, if you haven't seen this movie, do it. Seriously, like, if you really haven't seen it, tell me in the comments. I will give you my digital code. Seriously. Here's my Twitter. At me. If you haven't seen the movie, tell me. I will make you watch it. Everybody needs to watch this movie. It's amazing. Everything about it. I wouldn't change one thing about this movie. Well, I guess my rankings are pretty obvious. Here they are if you couldn't figure it out. Now, oh, yeah, what was I saying about Homecoming? Yeah, right. Besides its core values, Tom Holland is not a very accurate Spider-Man. So, there's that, but neither is Miles, or Peter B. Parker, or the other Peter Parker, or Penny Parker, or Spider-Man Noir, or Kingpin, or Prowler, or anybody in Spider-Verse. But, that movie's awesome. Shut up about comic accuracy. Doesn't matter. If you want to fight me on that, here's my Twitter.